what we're doing is we're finishing up our very last session of Love Song. Now, the first week we talked about, how do you go about pursuing someone to date and things of that nature. And then last week we talked about your importance. And this week we're actually talking about resolving conflict. How many of you have ever gotten in an argument with somebody? All right, how many was in the last week you got in an argument with someone? How many? Raise your hand. Keep it up if you were related to the person you were arguing with. Keep it up if it was a parent. Okay, I was just wondering, because I'm a new parent, and so I'm wanting to prepare my heart, right? So most all of you have had arguments. You have arguments with your parents. You have arguments with people. How many of you ever had an argument with a friend, like a close friend, right? Never had an argument with a friend. That's good. That's good. Most of us, and at some point in time you will get there, you have arguments. You have differences. You have things that happen, okay? And in relationships, be them friendships, ladies, am I going to separate you? Be them friendships or be them like relationships, you're going to have times that you have disagreements. If it's a healthy relationship, whether friendship or a healthy friendship or relationship, it's going to be clean, right? It's going to be a clean, bless you. It's going to be a clean fight. It's not going to be something that, it's not going to be a dirty fight. That's an unhealthy relationship. What's fighting dirty like in an argument? Anybody fight dirty in arguments? What you got? Okay. All right, we're not talking about physical fighting, but punch them in the face would be a dirty way of fighting if you're having a verbal argument. What else? Names. How many of you ever called someone a name? Right? What do you got? What part of you raised your hand to say something? Okay, maybe shoving. Now remember, we're talking about verbal fights, so we don't need. So yeah, verbal. Okay, what else? Insults, right? You ever been a part of an argument and you like bring up something that's not even in the argument? Like you're like, dude, Wendy's has the best desserts. No, they don't. McDonald's, and you're like, no, Wendy's is. And you know what? I can't believe, you remember whenever you messed up and you ate that pudding the other day, but it was actually dirt? You remember that? And they're like, oh, why would you bring that up? Right? You fighting dirty. Sometimes we do this whenever we get in arguments. We'll bring up something like, oh yeah, well, at least I didn't, drive over the mailbox with the golf cart. And you're like, we're not even talking about that. And you bring it up. There's fighting dirty, and that's unhealthy. When you're in arguments and stuff like that, if you resort to that, it's not good for you. All right? And the other thing, too, is how many of you, when you're in arguments, you just want to win, right? You don't want it, because if the argument doesn't go away, you want to win, right? And you come out of it, if it was victorious for you, yes, I won the argument. Whenever you're in a relationship, whenever you're in friendships, your arguments can't be about who's going to win, who's going to lose. Because the whole point of arguing is so that you come to a consensus. The whole point of having disagreements is so that you grow and you figure out the problem. If it's only about winning, then you're going to find yourself winning, but the relationship's going to suffer, right? So what we're about to do is we're going to read from Song of Solomon, a couple of verses, and we're going to talk about kind of how this relationship kind of models how we shouldn't be as far as handling conflict, okay? So just a recap, just a real quick, you can leave it up, that's fine. A real quick recap. The first week we talked about how he thought she was really pretty and she thought he was awesome because of his great character and all that, and they ended up liking each other. The part that you missed last week was they got married and it was very exciting, and now they're having their first fight. Their first fight as a married couple, and that's what we're about to witness, okay? So here we go. So, second verse says, I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking. Just makes me feel better. Open to me, my sister, my darling. He's trying to be smooth, right? My dove, my flawless one. All right? My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of night. Okay, so let me break down what's going on here. Okay? Really what he's saying, hey, let me in. I've been out late. Meaning he's got the dampness of dew and all that. Means he was out much later than he was supposed to be. He's coming in the middle of the night. Okay? Now, how many of you, if you were supposed to meet someone, if you were expecting someone home, if they came back like 6 hours later, would you be upset? Yeah. Yeah, and this is what, and he's like, nothing's wrong, let's just come home. Hey, here we go. All right, so So here we go. Then what we have these different things they're talking about earlier about everything's good and everything's wonderful, and the guy just kind of thinks this is okay. Do you think it's going to be okay? No. All right. So this is what she says. The next verse she says, "I've taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I've washed my feet. Must I soil them again?" AKA, this is Hebrew for "I have a headache and go away." Right? She said, I don't want to even see you. I don't want you in here. I'm in bed. I'm trying to go to sleep, and here you are, middle of the night, knocking on my door. All right? And so she's like, you know what? You were late. How many of you have ever had something that you thought was going to happen and then it didn't happen and you got upset about it, right? It's unmet expectation. For Christmas one year, I knew what I wanted. I knew exactly what I wanted. And it was called a Mad Dog truck. Okay, I was young. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember I wanted a Mad Dog truck so bad. And I told my parents probably like in November, which if you're telling your parents what you want, November's bad timing. You need to back that up a little bit. So I tell them in November, I got to have a Mad Dog truck. That's going to be the best thing. It's got to be a Mad Dog, Mad Dog, Mad Dog, Mad Dog. My parents went to the store, and it was like Jingle All the Way. If you've seen that movie with Turbo Man, there was not one to be found. There was not one to be found. And whenever Christmas came around, I have a gift that's about the size of a Mad Dog truck. It's the right shape. It's perfect. I get up in the morning, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And I open it up. And guess what it wasn't? It wasn't a Mad Dog truck. It was clothes along with another toy. And I was so devastated. Why? Because I didn't get because I was expecting that I was going to get the Mad Dog truck. Oh, it was a rough morning, okay? Yeah.
Was it like a little Hot Wheel car kind of a Mad Dog truck?
No, a Mad Dog truck actually, it was really cool, by the way. A Mad Dog truck was an RC car that in the wheels, it had like claws that whenever you're going over rough terrain, you just hit the Mad Dog button, and then the claws came out on the wheel, and it was able to get over things. It was legit. I never actually got one, but I was over it by the time that the next gift time came around. But unmet expectations often make us mad, and it's usually the biggest cause of problems in friendships and relationships. Okay, like some ladies when they get married, like they expect that their father paid the bills, their father took out the trash, and if whenever you get married, they're like, oh, my husband's not doing that. I expect him to do that, and they'll get upset. Or maybe that they thought that he'd be more of a spiritual leader, like he would pray more, he would do this. And guys sometimes get into relationships, and they're like, well, my mom cooked really well, and she doesn't cook at all. Or, I thought that, she would want to sit down and hang out with me more, or go to the movies more, or go, out on dates more, but she's not wanting to do that. There's these unmet expectations, all right? In my life, the biggest argument me and my wife have had, I'm going to open myself up here. The biggest argument me and my wife ever have is about the mail. The mail as in what the post office, what the post people bring. The mail. Because I grew up, I never got mail out of the mailbox. You know why? I didn't have one. I did not have a mailbox. Never did I go get the mail. We had a mailbox at the P.O. box, and my parents got it. And I never had a key. I never even had anything to do with the mail. So, but my wife had a mailbox. And when she was growing up, and the way it worked at her house, when the first person who got home after the mail was there, you just got it. And for her, it makes so much sense. For me, I never remembered the mail. For the first 2 years of our marriage, we would have this conflict of, did you get the mail? Oh, I forgot. I went out, and I'll go get it right now. She's like, nope, already got it. And I'm like, God. Man, and we would have this argument because she expected me to get the mail. She expected me to. And I expected that whoever wanted mail would go get it. AKA, that she would go get it. Right? But what have we done now? We had to talk it out. We had to sit down and have this expectation, this talk. Okay? A lot of times, what happens in relationships or friendships is you get mad, you get upset, and then you don't talk about it. How many of you want to talk to someone after you're mad at them? Right? You really, so some of us are like peacemakers, so we're like, we got to talk this out. But But there's a lot of us that we're like, man, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so they have this kerfuffle, if you will, aka fight. Okay, so they have this fight, and she's like, I don't want to get up, I don't want to get out of bed, go away. So this is the second part too. She's being very self-centered. Most of our fights and our problems and friendships come out of us being self-centered. What did she do? She said, I already taken my robe off. I'm already dressed for bed. I'm in my PJs. I've already had a warm cup of milk. I'm already for bed. I don't want to get out. Right? His actions are, I wanted to hang out all the time I wanted to go out and play, basically, and then I wanted to come back late at night. Both of them weren't thinking about each other. So a lot of times in our relationships, our friendships, we have trouble because we're not thinking about our friend or the person we're in a relationship with. We think of ourselves first, right? When you think about Christmas, what's the first thing you usually think about? Presents for whom? For yourself, right? And it's usually the first thing that comes to mind. And we think about, oh, we're having this meal. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Ooh, I really like that. Or, ooh, I don't like that. Because we're thinking about ourselves. We have to work at not just thinking about what we want. Okay? So we're going to keep going here, all right? So the next part, verse 4, it says, my beloved thrust his hand through the latch opening. Okay? My heart began to pound for him. This doesn't mean like he didn't bust down the door. Okay? He basically stuck his hand through. All right? And she's not freaking out. This is not a bad thing. Because I think when I first read this, I was like, what is he doing? Like, all right. No. He's not like breaking in. But he puts his hand through, and then her heart begins to pound for him. It says, I rose to open the door for my love, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers flowing with myrrh on the handles of the bolt. I opened for my love, but my love had left. He was gone. My heart sank in his departure, and I looked for him, but I did not find him. I called him, but he did not answer. Okay. So what's up with the myrrh thing? Basically, he put perfume on the door. That's what he did. He was like, okay, you're mad at me. Stick my hand. He puts perfume on the door. And then he leaves. She gets up. She's like, oh, I changed my mind. How many of you guys have ever had a girl just change her mind for no good reason around you, right? I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you haven't had this happen yet, it just happens. And you know what? There doesn't have to be a reason. Ladies, you get that card. You don't have to have a good reason for changing your mind. It's going to happen. You just say, okay, change my mind. Here we go. Guys, it will drive you nuts. Don't let it. Just know that's a fact. One day, this will work. Next time, it won't. Okay? You're like, oh, you look pretty today. And she'll be like, oh, that's wonderful. The next day, you say, oh, you look pretty. And she's like, all right, Mr. Bill can help me out on this one.
Guys, if you want to practice to get ready for this, because you will never understand it, go get yourself a female kitten.
Oh yeah, I know.
And you can pick her up one day. You can pick her up at 10 o'clock in the morning. And she'll sit on your lap and you can scratch your ears and that's fine. You try to do that 2 hours later and she will scratch your hand off. Same hand you picked her up with at 10 o'clock. Now, if she jumps in your lap, that's a whole different game. Then it was her idea. Women are very similar. It's much better if it's their idea.
And we're not condemning it. We're just saying it's a fact.
It's the way God wired women.
So basically what happens is this. He bursts his hand on the door. He puts some smelly stuff on the doorknob. He leaves and she's like, oh, now she's changed her mind. I'll open the door for you. Come in. Let's hang out. And she gets up and he's gone. How many of you, whenever you get in a fight, you just want to walk away? You want to get away from it, right? A lot of times people, and I get this, a lot of people are like, oh, you know what? When I get angry, I get upset, I just need to leave. I just need to go. Well, within relationships, within friendships, you just leaving can be really hurtful. It can be really damaging whenever you're just like, you're not willing to sit down and talk about it. And this is part of that self-centeredness. You're just like, fine, I'm not getting what I want, I'm getting out of here. But what happens to her, actually, and we're going to skip over this part, but what happens to her is she goes out and looks for him. And when she does, the night watchman, the people at the gate, she goes looking all about town for them. They end up humiliating her. They end up making fun of her. She ends up having a very horrible time because he left. They didn't resolve the conflict. She went to try to resolve it. She couldn't find him. And then this horrible thing happened to her. And it wouldn't have happened if he would have stayed, if they would have talked it out. So another thing whenever we're resolving is we have to be willing to not be selfish and go, okay, what do I need to do to talk this out? I'm mad, obviously. I'm upset. Do I need to leave? No. You may need to say, I need to step into the other room for a second, but you need to come back and meet this, okay? So to resolve conflict, here's what you need to know. You will act, not react. What does it mean to react to something? What you got?
Oh, God.
Okay, that would be a reaction getting hit and what you said. How about if you came in and somebody said, you know what, you're an idiot. Someone came in and said me that, and out of my reaction, I was like, well, you're a moron. And then it escalated to, well, you're a nerf herder. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll get that joke. Anyway, you're like, well, then you know what? Your mama, and here we go. It's escalated. You're reacting. You're reacting each time. Okay. What's a different thing from that? If you choose to act, which means that comes in, you come in and call me an idiot. I'm like, okay, I'm going to act. Let's talk about it. So why do you think I'm an idiot? What's wrong? What happened? You can't react. You have to act. Reacting is how when someone on the playground punches you and then you punch her back and you both get a day out of school. That's reacting. Okay, you got to be willing to think about what's going on. You got to think about taking a second. Okay, it's kind of like this. I want to use this next verse. It's from Romans 12. So it says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." How do you think you do that? How do you overcome evil with good? What good are they talking about? What?
Do nice things, forgive them or something.
Okay, forgive them something. Do something. Don't hit them. There we go. Okay, so do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The good they're talking about is the good that comes from God. It's the good that comes from Jesus Christ. It's not just the good feelings, whatever. It's not like someone comes up and punches you in the face and you're just like, oh, I'm so happy you did that. But what it is you go, okay, evil is what just did that to me. How do I overcome evil? Evil doesn't overcome evil. You can't be like, it's like one bad thing, two wrongs don't make it right, that kind of thing. It's the same thing with this. So whenever you look at it, you can't go, okay, they punched me so I get to punch them. That doesn't resolve anything. All right, it's going, okay, God, what do you want me to do? All right, and it's something along the lines of that if you're not careful, you have to make sure that you are responding with a godly response. Whenever you get in a relationship, a lot of times relationships where people feel like they can just criticize each other, right? We're close friends, so I can call him an idiot. It's okay. Or I can say that he's horrible at math and he never needs to. No, would that work in the workplace? You go up to your boss and be like, hey, you know what? You're an idiot. No, then you'll be looking for a new job. If it's not okay there, why would it be okay in a friendship where you're building each other up, where you're trying to help each other out? So we got to be careful not to criticize. We need to encourage, okay? And the next thing I want to talk about is this. So we have the fight, you have the argument. All right, so you decide you're going you will act and not react. The next thing is what you're focusing on. Okay? How many of you have ever met someone who always focuses on the negative? Someone who's always negative. They can walk outside right now and be like, well, I could get sunburned. They go in, you have free ice cream, like, well, it's not going to help my weight. And there's someone who's just negative all the time, that they always look for the bad. If we want to build strong friendships, strong relationships, we got to make sure to focus on the good, not the bad. Our next verse is this. It says, whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. All right? So what is that saying? What are we supposed to be thinking about? Good things. We're supposed to think about godly things. We're supposed to think about what is true, what is noble, what is right. Because how many of you have ever been in like a negative funk? You know what I'm talking about? Like, you're just in a bad mood. And things feel bad, they're going to be bad, and it's just kind of how you're rolling. a lot of times that all comes from what you're thinking about. What you're thinking about makes a big difference in your life. If you're thinking about, man, life stinks, and man, so-and-so doesn't like me, and man, I'm horrible at math, and there's probably a good chance that you're going to go around being Mr. Grumpy. You know, Mr. Grumpy Gills. That's what you're going to go around being. But if you're thinking about things that are true, if you're thinking about things that are right, if you're thinking about things that are noble, that are lovely, you're thinking about these things, then you are going to act in such a way that reflects what you're thinking about. All right? How many of y'all have ever heard of Billy Graham? You ever heard of Billy Graham? All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Billy Graham. Billy Graham is one of the premier evangelists of the 1900s. He is phenomenal. He traveled the world. He had big crusades. He's a Christian preacher and sharing the gospel. And I mean, probably millions of people came to know Christ through what he was doing. And he was married, and he traveled for roughly 5 months a year. So 5 months a year, he was on the road. And his wife wasn't always with him. And someone came up to ask her one day and said, Mrs. Graham, you know, how do you really feel about your husband being on the road? He was on the road 7 months of the year. So how do you feel about him being on the road for 7 months out of the year? Is that not being a horrible husband? And they're trying to instigate it. And she said, you know what? 5 months with Billy is better than 12 months with any other man. She was focusing on the good. She was focusing on what was right. We can't do this trading 80 for 20. And what that means is like say, we'll talk about my wife right now. But one thing that I do, that I do poorly, is I'm not very organized. Y'all probably know this if you're around me for any length of time. I'm not very organized. But I have a lot of good qualities. Organization's not one of them. It doesn't make the list. There's all these other things. And my wife could focus on my inability to keep a schedule or my lack of organization in the home. And she'd be like, wow, why are your drawers set up like that? Why does your closet look horrible? You know, why is this, and she could focus on that, and then it would disrupt our marriage. Or she can focus on, you know what? He does the dishes on a regular basis. You know what? He helps keep the house clean. You know what? He's at home, and he spends time with me, and he changes a lot of diapers now. And, you go through this. You can focus on the good. But a lot of people will focus on the negative and then go get someone else. Like in a relationship, they'll be like, oh, you know what? This girl is like 80% of what she does is awesome. She's all these different things, but she just doesn't cook as well as my mom. And that's about the only thing wrong. So I'm going to leave her and go find someone who can fill that. Someone who can cook. And that other person, that's all they can do. And they're trying to get, and then you're going to realize something else about them that's not right. Just one thing. You got to focus on the main thing. You can't get caught up on bad stuff. In relationships, my friend Corey, not this Corey, my friend Corey in high school, we were best friends. I talked about that a little bit last week. He was shorter than me, but Corey had a temper. Not this Corey, different Corey. I don't know if I've ever seen you mad. But my friend had a horrible temper. You accidentally threw something and hit him, he would blow up. Not literally. He wouldn't spontaneously combust. But he would just be like, man, what in the world? And then the words that I don't use. But he would have times that like it, and he would just get so angry so fast. And it was something that, like, he had a lot of great qualities. He was a fierce friend. He was a great friend. We would hang out. We had a lot of common interests. We supported each other. But man, if I accidentally hit him while we were playing basketball or something, not even on purpose, just, and that could have ruined our friendship. That could have been it. I'd be like, man, you get angry too much. I can't believe that. Or I could sit and focus, okay, you know what? You do get angry, but man, you're great in these other areas. We'll work on your anger, but I'm going to focus on our friendship and the parts that are good. So that's what we got to be doing if we want these things to help out, okay? Next one is that you will talk and not walk. We just talked about this. He said that, he puts the myrrh on there, he puts the perfume, and then he bolts, okay? This is our next verse. It says, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold. How many of you have ever gone to bed angry? You ever gone to bed mad? Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but anytime I go to bed mad, one, I don't sleep well. Two, I usually have horrible dreams. And then I'll wake up and I just had a horrible night's sleep. I'm grumpier and I'm still angry about whatever it was the night before. It just got worse, right? This is what happens whenever you go to bed angry. Now, within relationships, this is great advice. The Bible gives it, and several people that I know Mary gives me. You can't go to bed angry because it's just going to fester. It's going to, if you put a pot on the stove, you put a pot of water on the stove, and you cut the heat on there, what's eventually going to happen? Going to boil. How do we keep it from boiling over?
Put a lid on it.
Well, okay, put a lid on it. Thank you. If we don't want it to boil, we don't want it, let's say we got grits in there. Let's say we don't want them to burn. What are we going to have to do? Go ahead. Either turn the stove off or what?
Take the pot off.
Or take the pot off, all right? You're going to either have to turn the stove off, you're going to take the pot off. You're going to have to remove whatever is causing that heat. In the same way in arguments, whenever you have times that you're angry, whenever you're not on the same terms, if you want it to get better, you're going to have to talk it out. And you're going to have to find out why you're angry, what's causing it, so you can remove it. Anger just doesn't dissipate, all right? Because what it does, and then, like in this verse, it says, that do not give the devil a foothold. Why do you think being angry gives Satan a foothold in your life?
You won't see me angry
Why?
because you're angry.
More likely to sin.
Okay, you're more likely to sin. He's just evil. He's just evil. That's why. You're more likely to sin. Yeah, go ahead.
Jesus said in the Gospels, it's in probably all four, I'm not sure, I know about three, you cannot love God if you hate any man, woman, whatever. Jesus said that. You cannot love God if you hate anybody. So if Satan can cause you to be so mad with whoever, friend, girlfriend, whatever, that you actually generate hate, then he has separated you from God. He wins. You lose.
And it's right there. That really is the crux of it. Because it can get you to that point, and even though, how many of you angry make great decisions, right? Like, not many people, when they're angry, make the best decisions. Someone comes up and punches you, you're immediately angry, and your decision generally is like, I'm going to hit them back. That's not a great decision. But in your anger making that decision, it's the same way like someone wrongs you, and then you have an opportunity to run them back. If you're still angry, more likely you're going to choose to do something wrong. So we got to make sure that we're not having this anger. And how do we do that? We make sure to talk it out. We make sure to communicate. We make sure to go, oh, you know what? Anybody you're angry with, you need to talk it out. You need to have a conversation with them. And it doesn't need to last because it only builds and hurts you. All right? So in these friendships, the main thing, don't walk away. Don't leave. Talk it out. Be there and settle the disagreement. Make sure that you're having good communication. It really all comes down to that when it comes to your friendships and keeping godly friendships together. Will you guys pray with me? God, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for these awesome youth. God, I pray that you help us to be able to resolve conflict. I pray that you help us to be able to just to come to you with things and then communicate with the people we have problems with. Lord, I pray that you don't let the sun go down with anger, and that we reach out and that we make that first move to make sure that we keep our relationships, be they friendships or marriage, that we keep them on best terms, on godly terms. I pray all this in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen. All right.